Early the other morning, just as Tropical Storm Colin began making its way up the coast, I met up with Jamie Lloyd and Teresa Putnam of the Caswell Beach Turtle Watch to ride along on their morning patrol. Caswell Beach Turtle Watch is a private, non-profit volunteer program devoted to protecting the threatened and endangered sea turtles that lay their eggs on Caswell Beach. Species include the loggerhead turtle, the diamondback terrapin, the rare Kemp's Ridley, and the well-loved green sea turtle. Won't you come along for the ride? Can you tell us a little bit about the organization and how it got started?
Over 30 years ago, turtles' numbers were decreasing, and the state was looking to get some volunteers to help with turtle nest. We had Miss Idina Hendricks, who lived on Caswell Beach, and now we're the permit holders. So we have a permit by the state that allows us to do what we need to do to protect the turtles and the nests.
So what area are you guys responsible for?
Oak Island is such a large area. We start at the Oak Island Pier and we work east from there all the way around the point at Fort Caswell to the Fort Caswell Pier. And we do have turtles that nest on that river side. Close to 4 miles of beach that we monitor.
And then we're also responsible for
Southport Beach. So we have had turtles nest on Southport Beach, anywhere from Frying Pan Restaurant up to the Deep Point Marina. May 1st is when we start patrolling for the mother turtles' tracks to see if there's any nests. So they start laying in May, and they end their laying season about the second week in August, but the nests still are incubating and will hatch late September, early October.
What is a day in the life of a volunteer?
We have a morning patrol, a patrol of seasoned trainees or trained patrol members that know what to look for in the morning for the mother's crawls. And so we have about 10 of those, and we alternate days, work together in pairs at least on those, looking for those crawls, marking the nest, finding the eggs, that kind of thing.
You know, anytime we get out, we're looking for eggs and maybe we're having a problem finding them, we call some of our other patrol members and they'll come out and help us. We're all a big team, operate as a team.
So that's one area, and then the other area is nest sitting when the eggs have incubated or ready to hatch. We also have a team for stranding, for the turtles that are washed up on shore that are either injured or dead. We have a stranding team that takes care of that information, and if the turtle needs to be transported to Karen Beasley up in Tottsville, we do that.
Is there special training that people have to volunteer?
Yes, the state offers training, and they've gotten really, now that with COVID and everything, they did a lot of online and virtual training, which increased the possibilities of learning more through a season. So there is training through the state, and then there's on-the-job training as volunteers. Volunteers in training spend a year or so learning the ropes through experience with veteran team members.
How many volunteers do you guys have right now?
And we've got 119 volunteers right now.
That's pretty impressive.
And we do have a few on the waiting list for next year. So we like for them to wait. We invite them to come out and sit with us at the nest so they can see what goes on, what we do, and then we'll let them take the training next year, and then if they're still interested, they can become volunteers.
When we were on our patrol that day, you actually got called away.
Yes.
What was that story?
It was a nest. So it was near the Deep Point Marina. They call it, the locals in the landing call it Pebble Beach. And they've been patrolling for us ever since we've found a couple of nests already this year. So those nests have to be relocated. That is a very low spot on the beach that floods at high tide. So those eggs would not would not survive at all if they were left.
I had the honor of watching you relocate a nest. Teresa, you were a trooper in digging down and locating, and you were...
That was a deep nest.
It was quite a deep nest. So tell me a little bit about that experience and how you figure out where to find those eggs, and what it's like to try to get those delicate little things out and into your bucket.
Well, we try to go by the guidance that we're taught. The previous permit holder, Linda Smith, she's been following us. They've moved away, but they've been following us. So I sent her a note not too long ago. I told her, I said that I still hear her talking to me when I'm out looking. She says the eggs have to be where her butt was. So if you look at the, follow where her behind would have been, and they say go 2 feet in and start digging. So if you start digging, you'll start digging, and I try to dig around, and you'll feel the sand will be soft, and then about that time you'll poke through. Your finger will poke through, and you'll feel the eggs. And the eggs are leathery. They're not like a chicken egg. They're more of a leathery feeling. So then it's, you uncover them, and if you're going to move the nest, you have to uncover the whole thing and pull them out. So that day, it was that nest. It was a little bit harder to get those out because it was so deep. Because I was down, to my shoulder, trying to get them out. But
yeah, you were
and on your knees, and but.
And I think there were 103 eggs.
Yeah, I think there was 103.
Is that typical?
That's about
That's a good low average.
Yeah. Usually around 120.
120 is the actual average. So we've had a nest that had 50, and we've had a nest in the past that had 180. But this year we're running in the 120s and above mostly.
When I was with you, I noticed when we found the nest, you took a little bit of DNA. What do you do with that?
Oh, okay. University of Georgia, there's a professor down there that started doing DNA testing to try to see if he could track, do the turtles actually return to where they were hatched. So we sacrifice 1 egg out of each nest, empty the contents, and we send the shell to University of Georgia, and then we get the DNA results, and they can tell us if a turtle's nested one time, if she's nested more than once, if she's nested, how many times she's nested on our beach, how many times she's actually nested in different areas, which is really interesting. We had a grandmother turtle that comes.
So 3 generations of the same turtle family.
Yeah.
And you're talking about 75 years there, because a mature turtle is about 25. And some do only come back to Caswell Beach, but others will do the general region. They might nest with us one time, Bald Head, Oak Island, even Holden. So there's some that are regional, some that are specific to one beach, and then there's the nomads that go wherever they want to.
Yeah.
And we have this Southport turtle who about every 3 years, 2 to 3 years, comes back and only nests in Southport.
How does a mom decide where to come up? Is it just, do we know?
No, not really.
It's all every nest is different, every crawl is different. And if it is in the same general area, if it's one of those that returns to the same general area, it depends on the tide, and if it's high tide, then she doesn't have as much space on our beaches any longer. If it's low tide, it can confuse her, thinking that she doesn't have to go as far up, and she lays in sand that's not safe, that could be washed over by the next high tide. So we have to relocate those eggs up to the safer sand.
So if a mother is frightened off by something, she'll go back into the water, and then what will she do?
If she can find another place, she'll lay, but she could just dump her eggs. And then that clutch will be lost, completely lost. If it was a time where if it was time sensitive that she needed to get those eggs out and in the ground, but couldn't. Sometimes it's because they can't find a safe spot. It's, the sand is too wet where they come up. They'll try for another area, and if they can't, sometimes they'll just have to dump the eggs, which we don't want that to happen.
Can you tell us about the life cycle of a turtle?
So out of about 100 eggs, 1 in 100 will make it to the Gulf Stream after they've hatched. And the Gulf Stream can be anywhere from 20 to 40 miles out. And it takes them about 2 days to get there. Once they're out there, they're in what's called the Sargasso Sea. It's a seaweed-filled area with sargassum seaweed. And that's their home for the first year or two of their lives. They just float with the current. The seaweed holds them up. It offers them the food they need. There's microorganisms in there and things that marine life that they eat their first year. And it takes them wherever it goes. So they call it the lost years because we really don't know a lot about those years. And that's what happens to some of the green turtles and Kemp's Ridley's the juveniles that we get in the early spring washed up on shore. They've been in that current. Somehow a storm has washed them out, and then they get cold stunned because they're out of the Gulf Stream warm waters and they get into our cold Atlantic waters, and it paralyzes them. The cold does, and they can't. They get washed up ashore. So a lot of those we take to the Karen Beasley Sea Turtle Hospital for rehabilitation.
So it's not like somebody could just wrap them in a towel and hope for the best. Then they need to be professionally
and you don't put them in water.
cared for.
We put them in a bucket or a tub with a towel over them, a damp towel over them. But that's how we transport them to the hospital. But then they go from there with IVs and injections and lots of different kinds of things. It's a hospital, and they have vets from NC State that come to them, and they have very well-trained volunteers there to care for injured turtles. They do a great job. Yeah.
Now we've been picking up the diamondback terrapins.
Because we've had 2 diamondback terrapins about this big that have had boat strikes and needed rehabilitation also, not just sea turtles.
When people are out on the beach and they see where you guys have, roped off an area where there's turtle eggs, what do they need to know, and what can they do to help keep those turtles safe?
If you go out on the beach, it's great to go out and dig holes. It's fun to make sandcastles, but at the end of the day, you need to fill in your holes and knock down your sandcastles. If a turtle comes in and falls in that hole, you can injure it. Pick up all your toys off the beach, take down your tents, get your chairs up, because a turtle can get trapped. If she comes in, she can get trapped in a chair, around the ropes, because they don't see very well when they come out of the water. We prefer, if you're out on the beach at night with lights, we prefer you don't use the
flashlight,
the bright, get a red light to use on the beach.
And we know kids like to play the ghost crab chasing game with their flashlights, and that's okay, but they need to make sure they keep those lights away from turtle nests. Right. And if they are shining their lights and they come across the turtle, then they need to turn their lights off really quickly.
Then, of course, they also go toward a light. They can get confused after one lays. If she sees a bright light, she may go the wrong direction.
And so we asked the beachfront houses to please just have their lights off at night.
Closed.
And curtains closed. That helps a lot.
Or there are turtle-friendly lights.
When we were out, you mentioned that everybody really kind of pulls together even around the lighting aspect of it. You had mentioned that the condos that we
the Oak Island villas, yes,
and that they notify their guests and residents to please be mindful of that. And the golf course got in on being cautious around the turtles.
There was a wedding weekend before last, and they were there. We have a nest near the golf course beach access, and they were concerned about the nest with the wedding festivities and that people might stumble over it. So they went out with their own stakes and marked off around our nest a much bigger area to protect it. That was really great, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And when I had him on the phone, I talked to him about the bright lights in their parking lot, and he assured us that anytime we need to have them turned off, just to call Brunswick Electric, and they would turn them off during the time period where that particular nest might be hatching. Yeah. So that was very supportive, and we appreciated it.
That's great. And I know you have people who are regulars who walk and run on the beach. There was a couple and their dog that we saw that always kind of updates you because they watch for the turtle tracks and they alert you, right?
Yeah, they do. They'll be running by and they'll have a number 3 up. We saw 3 or nothing today.
So it's really nice. It's kind of like a community project. What should you do if you see a mama turtle coming out of the water?
So if at night, you should turn your light off if you have a light on the beach. Stay back behind the turtle and watch her come in. It's a great opportunity. You watch her come in, you can watch her lay and quietly, and then when she turns around to leave, just stay back and watch her leave.
If you get in front of her or beside her, you're going to spook her and she's going to turn around and go back into the water, and that'll be a nest that wasn't laid. Always stay behind at a very respectful distance, at least 20 to 30 feet behind, and call us. Call us and let us know that you have a turtle on the beach. It looks like it's going to lay. It's up in the dunes, wherever it is. Give us the location, and we're about 10 minutes away. And if we get called in time, we can get our scanner. After she's laid, we can scan the mother's flippers for tags to see if she's a tagged turtle. The state likes to get that data.
What is the number that they should call?
910-368-6323. And that is what we call our Caswell Beach Turtle Hotline.
Excellent.
Night or day, it doesn't matter. We'll answer.
Education is a big part of what you do all the time as a group.
It is. We have a member who's she's a very good photographer, and she made some little photo books for each team to have at their nest, and we share those with the families that come up. It shows the process from beginning to end, the mama's tracks, pictures of how big the mamas are, what the nest looks like inside, and then what happens when they start hatching. So that's been really a very good educational tool for us. And we have brochures that give information also. We keep people informed as best we can on Facebook and our website, but we are not permitted by the state to publish the nest locations. It is one of those, kind of bucket list kind of things, and we understand that. We know that people want to see that.
But I understand why you publish it. I know we had talked about when there was the turtle release.
Oh, yeah.
And it was publicized, and it was like
1,500 people.
A rock concert.
Right. So we just ask that, if you're really interested in finding out and wanting to sit with the nest, just go out to the beach, look left and right. The nests are everywhere this season, and once they have the green landscape edging up, that means that they're about ready to hatch. So we put it up a few days before we think the incubation time is up, and we'll start sitting. So if they see people, like volunteers, sitting at the nest, then it really is pretty close to time for the nest to hatch. And we'd love to have everybody come and sit with us.
Are there any favorite memories that you have?
I also do part of the walking patrol from Fort Caswell's pier around what we call the East Point. There's been a lot of dune erosion, and it's a tough place to get around if the tide is high. So we have to walk that patrol that by walking. And I was coming around the point and came across the mama's tracks with just one set. So it was the incoming track, and there was not an outgoing track yet. And there she was up against the dune doing her thing. And I just sat down on a little incline and watched her lay and watched her walk back out.
And then the first time we had the
camps,
they called. Somebody just called and said it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Somebody said, "Oh, there's a turtle on the beach." So I get the strand kit and I'm on the way out there. I think there's something wrong, and I get out there. No, it's nesting, and she's just finishing up when I get there. And then we watch her go back into the water.
So we had 2 Kemp's Ridley's nests last year, and they are the most endangered species of the turtles and the rarest. And it was the first time Caswell Beach had ever had a Kemp's Ridley nest, so we were very excited about that. This year, so far, we have 63 nests. We'll probably get at least 20 more before the season's over. And so we offer the adoptions, and you can adopt a nest. You get a certificate, and you get updates as to what's happening, like when the green goes out, when the landscaping edging is out, your nest is about ready to hatch, and then when it does hatch, we email the family and let them know the statistics of what we saw, and then after an inventory, they get the specific statistics of how many hatched and how many didn't hatch, and if there were any live hatchlings in the nest during the inventory. So they get pictures and updates all throughout the process.
And it really helps us to keep our inventory of poles and the green we use, and all the things that we use to mark the nest.
So any money that comes in through the adoptions goes directly back into the program to help support us. And we appreciate the community's help.
Oh yeah.
Thank you for all of your hard work and your efforts. Greatly appreciated. And thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you. Thanks.